Welcome to the Awaken on Purpose podcast, where each week you'll receive insight, inspiration, and advice for aligning your mind, body, and spirit to achieve a fulfilled life and live your purpose with me, your host, Jennifer Spor. You'll also hear from other leaders who share their inspirational stories and wisdom in living fulfilled, on purpose, and making an impact. If you're a mission-driven leader and you're passionate about learning and integrating all the things that empower you to live and lead a fulfilled, purpose-led life, this is the show for you. Hey everybody, Jennifer Spor here, host of the Awaken on Purpose podcast. And today we have a treat because you get me solo. I am super excited to share this episode with you because today I'm going to share more with you about my origin story. So if you've been following me for any period of time, I speak a lot about how I was no longer challenged in my previous corporate career and how that was a driving factor in terms of changing paths to become an entrepreneur. And it's true, but it's really so much more than that. And that's what I am going to share with you today. When I stopped feeling challenged in my career, the truth is that it wasn't just about my job where I was feeling discontent. It was really about my entire life in general at that time. I had spent my entire life essentially being on in my job all the time, prioritizing my work over everything else. And even when I wasn't working all the time, I was most of the time doing things that my friends or family wanted to do, which there's a time for that, and that's okay, right? But this was really more the rule versus the exception. And when I stopped feeling challenged in my work and like it might be time for a change, I really honestly didn't know who I was. I wasn't even clear on what my own values were because I never created space for myself to develop that clear sense of self. And essentially, despite how great everything looked on paper, I was living in survival mode. I wasn't thriving. I was surviving. I was doing what I thought I had to do, what societal imprinting conditions so many of us to believe that we have to do, that success looks like this cookie cutter thing. And hey, if you achieve this externally, then you'll be happy, right? And I found out the hard way, that's just not how it works. But what I'm want to go deeper with you all on today is to explain even further the backstory of how all that came to be, because the living in survival mode really came from having been on my own since the age of 16. And why was I on my own at the age of 16? It was because I was living in a volatile home environment. There had already been trauma and abuse in my life. And I had reached a place, even at that young of an age on my journey, to where I had a realization that, hey, if I don't leave home, then something much more escalated might happen. So that's how I ended up on my own at 16. And so pretty much from that early age, I was, living in survival mode as a result of being on my own and the past, trauma and all of those experiences. I'm sharing this with you because so much of our behavioral patterns that we exhibit that sabotage us have a root cause from some type of experience that happens much earlier in our lives, or it can even be a traumatic experience that occurs as an adult. And if we aren't able to recognize that and create the space to look at where the shifts need to be made, then those patterns can continue to play out throughout our adulthood, throughout our entire lives. And so fast forward to the age of about, I think I was about 37 or 38 when I started feeling like I really needed to make a change. It took a lot of courage for me to do that, because I had been feeling it for a year or two before my mom was sick with terminal cancer, which was the catalyst for me at that time to actually take action, because I felt like I had to choose between spending time with her, which were her last days at that point, or being attentive in my corporate job. So I'm getting off track in what I'm sharing with you here, but essentially providing you with the deeper background around how I got to be in that place where I was no longer happy in my job. And what I'm trying to say is that even changing jobs that you don't like anymore, doesn't guarantee that you'll achieve fulfillment. Achieving fulfillment in your life is multifaceted, right? And so it's really all about alignment. It's really all about living in congruency, which I've learned isn't a destination, but it is a destination, and you can achieve goals as a result of it, but it's very much a journey, an ongoing journey. And so it's really important to be self-aware and to really use your emotions as a GPS in terms of whether or not you are happy in what you're doing, because life is just as much about feeling joy and feeling happy as it is about accomplishing all the things or checking all the boxes off the list. And even when you do reach a place where you accomplish so much, which is amazing, right? You may still, find yourself compromising. And many high achievers do have a tendency to overcommit. What I'm trying to say with this is that despite all you've accomplished, it's really important to make sure that you're putting yourself and your own well-being first, because when you do that, then you actually expand your capacity to give back. And I know that that's probably, it's not anything that you haven't heard before, but that's the whole point, right? It's like you hear all the information and you have all this knowledge, but how are you applying it in action in your life? How are you really embodying it? Everything that I'm sharing with you today are all experiences that I've worked through myself and that I support my clients in now. And I'm really feeling called to share more about this, especially with the current world climate that we're in. Really the key to navigating your life, navigating through these uncertain times, is to have a clear sense of self, to understand your values, your strengths, things you enjoy, your purpose, and being clear in your vision and being unwavering and uncompromising in that. So step back and just reflect, right? And even if you are clear in your vision, there is value in reflecting every so often on where you are feeling guided to make changes. Because as humans, we're actually wired for creation. We're wired for expansion. Thank you for listening to the Awaken on Purpose podcast. Please visit me and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or at awakenonpurpose.com so you never miss an episode. To learn more about how you can achieve a fulfilled life, live your purpose, and make an impact as a mission-driven leader, visit me at jenniferspor.com. And while you're there, be sure to join Awaken on Purpose, the community, to connect, collaborate, and grow in business and life with others who are like-minded.